Hey friends, Bill here with Sportsman Outreach. Hope you're having a good start to the week. We had a good one this past weekend in St. Petersburg, Florida. About 10 or 11 of us were there for 3 days, 160,000 plus fans. It's a great place. St. Petersburg is one of those cities that is designed for foot traffic, if you know what I mean. I think the first indication, at least for me, for these things is they have wide sidewalks and easy access in and out of the city. And so that it was that way. And what happens there is that creates a lot of foot traffic going into the gates, the grandstand for the race. And so we were able to cover the three gates, three primary points where people gather in the city for 3 days, 8 hours a day, and that's our mission. So in water the word, be out there and administer to people. So it went great. Plus a great fellowship. You know how these things go. We had a couple guys, one guy that was new to being with us on a trip, although he preaches with Alex Bird in Athens, Georgia. Another brother hadn't been down to St. Pete, Florida before. And another guy, Vaughn, he lives about an hour and a half away. He's been with us once before. He does a great job. So we had some new people getting together, some old people, some veterans, and guys like Sterling and so forth. Doc came down from Minnesota, Gene, these guys. So we had a Mike from Charlotte. We had a wonderful time down there, fellowship and preaching and so forth. And then Bill Stump over at the Tampa Bay Baptist Conference Center. They do a great job as usual. We've been going over there since 2009 for the first Super Bowl outreach. So it's like coming home in a sense. It's a great setup over there. So we had a great time. But today we're going to talk with Joshua Richards, who lives in Bell Center, Ohio. We've known each other for a long time. I cannot remember when we met, but it seems like forever. And we're going to talk to him about how he got into open air preaching, and then talk about the Circleville Pumpkin Fest again this October, Lord willing. Joshua, how you doing?
Hey, Bill, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us. So you were saying a minute ago about the eclipse. Tell us about the eclipse and what your plan is for the eclipse and the gospel and so forth.
Yeah, so pretty exciting opportunity. That's something that happens, every day, every year. But Monday, April 8th, we've hosted an Airbnb and Hip Camp, two different lodging companies. We've had people come and stay at our property over the last few years, but we're going to host 30 this time. So with the larger group, and so hoping for gospel opportunities there as people look up in the sky, those crazy looking glasses, and see this eclipse.
So they're going to camp on your property, like roll in with campers, or they're going to stay in your house, or what are they going to do?
Sure. So we've got some that are coming in RVs. We've got some that are going to be in tents. So just imagine this random farm out in the open, the backyard, just loaded down with tents and everything. So it'll be a little crazy. Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. So now you're doing this on Airbnb?
Yeah, Airbnb and Hip Camp, two different sites. They're both about the same thing, but a place for you to get lodging. So worked out.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So obviously you've done this. Obviously this is an evangelist thing that you now think about. So how did you? What like when you were just sitting around, you and Rachel said, "Hey, why don't we have some people on our property?" How did that idea come about?
We were just looking for opportunities for passive income in ways that one allows me to spend more time with family, and two allows me to have more time to do evangelism. So I think it was actually last year we actually had a guy come all the way from Canada, drove down by himself. He was headed to Utah, and when God offers you opportunities, even if it's just giving him a gospel tract, it's just another way to get the gospel out, and it's even from your own home. It's good. It's good.
That's awesome. So you do this year round? People can camp on your property year round?
It's a year-round thing. Now, usually around the summer, the spring and summer, especially like 4th of July, those type of things, holidays, those are usually pretty big. Wintertime, it kind of tends to slow down a little bit, but yeah, it's a good business, and it's something we could get more into. But that's where we're at right now.
That's pretty cool. Well, tell them to bring a shovel and come down in December.
Yeah, there we go.
Enjoy the snow with some igloos.
Give you a 20% discount if you shovel or walks, right?
That's exactly right. Hey, we'll give you a day off. No kidding. Well, that's pretty cool. That's a great opportunity. I didn't know you were doing that. What's the other site? Pivco?
It's called Hip Camp. it's
Yeah.
if you look it up, it kind of has this like a hippie type theme to it or whatever, but it's specifically for people that do tent camping and RVing. And the prices, because of that, they tend to be a little bit cheaper because most people like myself are you're just offering your backyard. You don't actually have to have a structure. So
You don't have to have hookups or anything like that, electric or water.
right. You can. I mean I have like a garage that can just hook up there, but we don't have like potable water or anything and
Really?
a toilet at this point. We're working on that. But yeah, you bring your own, you pack it in, you pack it out. So yeah, roughing it.
Well, that's pretty cool. Good for you. How many
Yeah.
acres you got?
We have an acre and a half. So it's a smaller setup, relatively speaking, but but God's blessed it so far and we've had some good opportunities to talk to people there. So yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, that's awesome. So, I mean, that's a great inventive way, creative way to do what you're doing. So, tell us how, like, what happened in your life to take you from not evangelizing to evangelizing? Do you remember that day when you thought about doing it? What happened the day before? What happened, and then what did you start doing the next day?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking, Bill. So, long story short, sitting in church Sunday evening, back when they actually had Sunday evening services, and next thing I know, they were playing a video for Ray Comfort, and I didn't know who Ray Comfort was, didn't know anything about him, and just listening to his presentation, I believe that's when God put it on my heart to take an interest in evangelism. And there's some other guys. There's a guy actually with Crew. He's a missionary with Crew, and he invited some of us. I think we were in our early 20s to get together and take a trip to the boardwalk in Wildwood, New Jersey. And those from
Yeah.
there, we had an opportunity to walk around the boardwalk with flipboards and do spiritual interviews, ask people questions. And that's really, I think, for me, thinking through the whole thing, I think that's where God really started to uh, show me that woe is unto me if I preach not the gospel.
So, were you scared when you sit there and saw Ray Comfort's video and go, I'm not going to do that? Or did you go, yeah, let's go?
Oh yeah, like I mean, watching it, at that point, evangelism was so new to me. I didn't even know there were people that got on the soapbox, stood in the open air, reading a Bible, singing, preaching Christ in that method. I just, I didn't have a clue. But yeah, I mean, just thinking about it now, and I think it took a couple other brothers in person, me watching them. First, it was just holding a sign and kind of getting comfortable with that, taking baby steps, and then it was from there, seeing guys in the open air preaching. That's when God starts. Okay, if these guys can do it, why can't I do it? It's the same Holy Spirit. So
So, were you scared when you started thinking about it? When you really started to do it, were you scared?
yeah, I mean, like I think first time, and I think every time when we go out there, we still get our feet get a little wet, get a little nervous, and then it's amazing once you get on that box. If you've never preached in the open air, God just begins to take away that fear and give you this comfort, this confidence. As you know, Bill, I'm not the most confident person myself, but yet God can still use somebody like me to get on the box. And as I think it was Sterling that always says, open air preaching draws one-on-one conversations, kind of like the replicating effect. So, and I found that to be very true in my open air preaching experience. God's begun to slowly over the time take away that fear. So it's been very encouraging.
So, what was your, how did that help? And we'll talk more about exactly what you did, but how did open air preaching help your faith?
Just realizing that I can't do this work with on my own and my own strength. I need someone bigger than me. I need God. I need Him. I need His Word. I need prayer. Before I would just kind of just pray for meals and everything. Pretty, pretty immature, really. And so when you're preaching in the open air, you realize that you can't do this work in your own strength and your own efforts. You need God's help. And so um, I've tried preaching in the open air without praying, and it just isn't the same thing. But you have that time in the Word. So faith-wise, to answer your question, God has and is still teaching me the importance of prayer, praying before, during, and after an evangelistic activity, and then spending that time in the Word, hearing what God has to say. Those two elements, I think, have really been beneficial.
That's good. That's a good answer. Well, cool. So what happened? So you saw the video, you went to the boardwalk. What began? So over the next year, 2 or 3, what did you begin to do?
So after that trip, nothing else really happened. But what was interesting is I started noticing that there weren't. I had a desire to do evangelism, but there weren't a lot of people in my church that really wanted to do it. It was just kind of like a one-time trip type of thing. And I went on a few other mission trips, and they were good, humanitarian type of thing. But I wasn't actually sharing the gospel. I remember, I think I was in Honduras one year, and I was like frazzled because they weren't doing intentional evangelism. So I snuck some gospel tracts in my pocket and handed them out there in Honduras because I wanted to get the gospel out. And then it was that sometime after this trip in Honduras, of course, I met Rachel. We got married, and I was introduced to SFOI. I believe it was the first Super Bowl was the 2016 Super Bowl in San Francisco, I believe. And thanks to Michael Coughlin, getting connected with him, that's kind of where everything really started. Doing it more on a regular basis.
Where was that one? Was that Atlanta? No, 16 was what, San Francisco?
San Francisco, yes.
That's okay, cool. Now then we went down, or we kind of went down together, kind of did, but we were down there in Rio together. What year was that?
Rio, wow, yeah, good memories. That was around the same year too. I think it was 2016. Yeah, Rio, San Francisco. That was my first derby. So yeah, that's a lot of things that year. Yeah.
I remember y'all weren't married there, but y'all were there together. That was an interesting trip. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
cool. So did that all that life, coming into that whole world, did that really? How did that change you? Did it change you, or were you just getting more focused on the work? Explain that transition in that
It's
time
just
in your
been
life.
it's just been a work in progress, and and I've had to look in my own heart at my own motives just over the years, and it's interesting, and just listening to stories of other evangelists and everything. Life has. I think Dr. Ratasik put it this way: life has chapters, right? And so you go through a time, you're really excited about the ministry, you're doing a lot, then all of a sudden you're doing so much you can't handle it, you drop off for a while, but then God, you read the word, you see other people, you get excited, you see the event, you start doing more. And so it's been a learning and growing experience for me over the years, just up and down, up and down. And you look at these guys like myself and others that are out there on a regular and a consistent basis. And I think that has, for me, what has been helpful to help me to not just completely want, oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm not good enough. I'm not equipped enough, whatever, to just keep the hand to the plow and not look back, if that answers your question.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, it's interesting. Like Apostle Paul, if you look at his life, he spent, I would say, 14 years in the desert getting the gospel when he was in Damascus, and then I don't know how long he preached, but then he was in jail after they arrested him in Jerusalem for 2 years, and then went to Rome. He was in house. So he was house arrest. So there was quite a bit of time he wasn't out going from city to city, and so there's definitely transitions there. That's for sure. I'm just agreeing with what you're saying. So I think all of that kind of stuff helps us grow. What has been the most surprising part of the preaching in your life that you have experienced that you did not expect?
I think just the fact that God can use me. He could probably. I mean, there's we've talked about lots of different evangelists over the years and stuff, but I'm not college educated or anything like that. God can use a nobody like me, my sin, my depravity, and he can draw a crowd through me, through preaching. He can do it. If he can do it through me, he can do it through anybody. That's how I look at it. So, and just I remember the first time God had drawn a crowd through my preaching. I think we had about 30 people or something. It was at the really just wild festival in Columbus one time, and I was just surrounded by people and just berating me and everything. But yeah, it was amazing at that moment. And hear these kind of stories all the time. God just gave me this power, this encouragement to keep going, to not give up, and trust in Him. And there were people that were listening, and I think it was that moment I realized, okay, I can keep doing this, in spite of resistance and things like that. God can still use that.
Gotcha. How has being married helped the ministry? I know that's not why you get married per se, but how has that helped your faith and when you minister?
Yeah, this is well, and by God's grace, have been married to be 8 years in October. Hard to believe it's been that long with our 3 kids now. Um, but yeah, being a family, it helps me put things in perspective too. Having a wife that is supportive of what I do, and it is imperative. I think if you're married and you don't have that kind of support, I think you can be held back a little bit. And Rachel has always been encouraging in me doing evangelism, and also been willing to pray. So that has been very helpful. Also, then now, and I've seen this in other evangelists like Brother Terry Coe, guys like that. But just taking our kids out with us when we're doing evangelism, and them getting to see what we're doing is teaching them just about how the world is, how people are, whether it's an abortion mill, whether it's a sporting event, a sidewalk, them getting the opportunity to see God at work in the world as through the preaching. It's definitely been a blessing.
It's cool. This she was down there with you in Rio de Janeiro. We were down there. Did she, when y'all were doing this together, did she still do it with you? Did she still go out?
Yeah, she's still, and yeah, that was back there. I'm at Rio. That's a long time ago. But yeah, she still tries to go with me when she can, and just even if it's just having a few tracks in her pocket. But yeah, doing family evangelism together. Think of guys like the Cutshaws just out there faithfully doing the work. It's really a blessing to have a teammate out there with you. It's something you can do by yourself, but it's also something, depending on your season of life, that you can do with a family. You have to make. I'm learning a few adjustments along the way, and I certainly am not going to say I've got it all figured out, but yeah, God works all those things together for His honor and for His glory.
What's been the favorite place or location that you've preached and why?
Lately, and this has changed, I do really enjoy preaching at sporting events. In fact, last year, preaching at the Bowling Green State University, it's a smaller crowd. It's not like Ohio State University or Tennessee Tech or any of those big ones, which I do enjoy that. I love the big crowds, but sometimes the smaller crowds, I feel like you actually get more one-on-one dialogue because you have less distraction. That's just kind of been my experience. I really enjoy that. But right now, um, my line of work, I do a lot of gig work, so DoorDash, Instacart, those kinds of platforms. And so what I found is, God kind of sets the journey. Okay, this person way over here in city A needs their food delivered, so I go to that direction. And then if it starts to die off, okay, now God maybe wants me to preach here at this busy intersection in the area. And I found that to be a very successful strategy. And I've even been able to take along some other friends with me, Roger McKinley, guys like that, to join me delivering food. You can share the gospel that way, and then when you're done delivering food, groceries, or whatnot, then you can preach the gospel at that spot. And so, yeah, there's something about just a sidewalk with a few cars going by or a few people walking by. Sometimes those have been for whatever reason, the places where I've had the most one-on-one interaction.
So you're just pulling the car over, parking it, and getting out
Yeah,
on the
just
spot?
get out, and I always bring my backpack with me. Ray Comfort always says always bring tracks. I try to say always bring an amp with you, and so I just get it out, either start preaching or get out, hold a cross, hold a sign, depending on the context. Um, yeah, I'm kind of a pansy compared to some of you guys like Derby, but yeah, I don't usually like to preach in the rain. But hey, you got a waterproof Bible. You can even preach in the rain too, and so yeah.
Crazy. Well, that's pretty good. I told somebody a long time ago, I said, that's what you ought to be prepared to do. Like, pull the car over, get out, and get ready. You don't need a big ramp up time, really, if this is kind of what is going on with you. And that's a perfect thing. It's anyway. Well, cool. So, perfect place. What would you say if you were to stand before? We're talking about Circleville in a minute, but if you're going to stand before, so let's say 1,000 guys and tell them why they should start preaching, like you didn't know whether they were called or all those kind of stuff, but you want to tell them one primary reason why they should start doing it, what would you tell them?
There's a lot. I think as you've taught me over the years, to summarize it, I would have to say because God commands it. It is not an option. It's not an optional thing. I would look at it as the same thing as you need your food. You need to eat. You got to go to the bathroom. You got to sleep. I mean, it's just one of those basic things. You got to do it. And if you don't do it, you'll be malnourished.
That's a good word, malnourished. Okay, that's good. Well, cool. Let's your life has changed a little bit. Like, how has your how would I say it? Like, you've gone. Let's just say you might be operating in more of a realm of faith right now, and in the question of discerning God's will and His wisdom for you. I give people some wisdom on that, how you've done that, and to learn to do that.
Yeah, it's just brother Stephen Kendall actually had a great conversation with him recently, and we always are thinking when we pray for God's will, what does God want to do with my life? These kinds of things. Well, you should talk to God about it. You should talk to God about it, and it's kind of this thing we hear all the time. But what we don't usually hear a lot of is, well, listen, hearing back from God, and that was a really encouraging thing. I actually heard very recently from brother Stephen, just sharing how sometimes we need to wait. Sometimes we think we're hearing from God and we aren't. And so I think that's a big part of it. The other part of it too, and this is also something that, as you know, I am in the process of learning, is letting my yes be yes and my no be no. So, making a commitment, sticking with it, sticking with our commitments, and being committed to the mission that we have, I think is very important. These are kind of things and learning not just on the family life, but also in the evangelism world. It's funny how they just kind of there's a parallel there. How those kind of go together. Makes sense.
So that's a good answer. So, in the terms of listening to God, what is how do you listen, or how do you prepare to listen? How does listening happen?
Just waiting for the Lord, and it would mean uh, my will might want to be to do X, so that mean I might have to wait and not do X or not commit to X or take more time to make that decision. And God will reveal it. He will confirm His will through His Word and through other people who don't even know anything about the situation. Some of the better advice I've heard on that end over the years.
So, obviously, your prayer life has changed. Tell us about your prayer life, how it increased when you started preaching, and sort of how have you dealt with that over the years.
Yeah, so it's again like you know, started out just popcorn prayers here and there. And, being a part of the George Whitfield program and just seeing how guys were praying like an hour a day, 2 hours a day, that kind of thing, reading stories of men like Whitfield and others to get on their knees and wear holes on the hardwood floor from being on their knees for 4 or 5 hours a day. Now, again, in my context, I'm not praying quite that much, if I'm being honest, but I am still praying consistently. And again, you make adjustments, figure out what works, what doesn't work. The idea is not necessarily I believe the quantity, but the quality of the time that God hear those prayers. And I believe that He has been working and is still working, and in spite of me and through me. And so, prayer, I can't do anything without prayer. So,
And so, how does prayer facilitate listening to God's voice to you?
we can't have what we want if we don't pray about it. So we have to pray. We got to get on our knees, and then we have to wait for God to answer. And that's just a matter of waiting and discerning His will, reading His Word, and I believe He will confirm it. So that's where I'm at right now with it, and I'm at content and at peace with it.
And so, when you started preaching, did you have a transition? This is about the Bible, from really having an emphasis on traditions of man, transitioning to the Word of God. Was there any of that involved when the Word became more central to your faith?
Sure. Well, I mean, there was obviously a time where, as a lot of Christians have, where we doubt our salvation. We don't believe the promises that He has. And I think once I started realizing, I'm secure, I have that security. I believe that's when God really, His Word just became alive to me. To answer the question. So, started reading more, started getting more, understanding more of the heart of God in the Word, not just reading, knowing more about God, but knowing God Himself.
And that came from reading, just from focusing on the Word. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just spending time in the Word, studying it, listening to preaching, being around other Christians that are living out the Word. Because there's a lot of there's two camps. There's guys that are, I think Dan Corney made a post about this one time, kind of interesting. But there's guys that spend a lot of time studying and studying, and they're in the bookwork, which is good, but there's no applied theology. There's no, okay, get out of your book now. What does this look like? And then you have the other camp where they're spending all their time applying and applying, but they're not spending enough time in the Word and studying. So there's two camps, it's two dynamics, and I think if you have both, I heard it saying one time, if you have too much doctrine, you dry up. If you have too much spirit, you'll blow up. But if you have both, you'll grow up.
That's really true. That's true. That's a balance. Cool. Maybe think of something else. Has your how would you describe your since you started preaching again, like the transition here? When you started, you described knowing God better in a sense, adopting habits to know God better, the Bible and prayer. How else would you say the preaching, putting pressure on your faith, has really changed either your worldview or your life and how you live life?
Well, certainly, and again, this is something I'm still in the process of learning, but seeing, it's funny the timing there. You putting the glasses on, because that's really the way it has been in my Christian life. Although I don't wear glasses, you put on those certain lenses and you see things a different way. So if you're an Arminian, obviously you're going to come to God's Word and you're going to see more what you do and what you are supposed to do. It's not so much about God, but you have those reformed glasses on, those lenses. You start realizing that I don't have to depend on myself. I can depend on God. And so that element of reformed theology and I'm going through the confessions and everything right now. That, and then of course, I believe local church does play a role to a point in that as well, being around other Christians in a particular context. That dynamic, the local church, Reformed theology, again, you can get too involved in that. You can get too, spend so much time in that, but then you neglect the other things. But that combination, I think, is very important in my life. As I've seen, I guess what I'm trying to say is I've had more of a reliance upon God in every area of my life. That's been the goal, and I have seen a change in results as a result of doing that.
That's a good answer. That's good. That's good. That's a good way to look at the whole thing, the balance of it all. That's very true. Well, cool. Any other? So again, you're in front of all these guys. You're talking to them. Any other wisdom you would share with them before we talk about Circleville?
Yeah. Again, I've probably said this in other videos, but you pray the Word, you read the Word, sing the Word, believe the Word. Have God's Word in your heart. God will continue to reveal Himself more to you. You'll realize how much depraved you are and how much you need Christ alone to do the work that He's given us to do. Great Commission. So that's where I'm at right now, and we'll see what else God continues to teach me.
Well, that's true. You can't get away from it. That's the whole thing. The Word, you cannot get away from it. Kind of gets that simple, doesn't it? Cool. Tell us about Circleville. You've been going like 2 years, Circleville, Ohio Pumpkin Festival. Tell us what that's like and describe the opportunity.
Yeah, so 2 years now with SFOI. I'd actually been going before that for a few years, and just over the years, more and more people have been interested in participating. Different states, things like that. God has, kind of like with the church, God, unless the Lord builds the house, the people labor in vain that build it. God is building His church, not just the local church, but He's raising up evangelists. So He's raised up evangelists for the Pumpkin Show. And Pumpkin Show, you're talking 100,000 people every day. And you think, I'm one person, how am I going to reach 100,000 people in one day, 8-10 hour session preaching? And then that's when you realize this dependence that you have, this unity in the faith of other brothers, sisters coming together to preach the Word and commit to that. Circleville being a 3-day event, and this year, Lord willing, 4 days. Brother Heath has once again offered to teach again this year, and I've had a lot of good responses to that, a lot of good feedback. It's been very helpful. You have that teaching time, you have a time of prayer, It's kind of like a mini Super Bowl in a sense. Certainly a lot of people love to see God raise up even more people this year. But whatever He wants to bring, and it's a blessing. People coming from all over the world. The largest free event in the world. Just see pumpkins, pumpkin burgers, eat pumpkin pierogies, stuff like that. It makes no sense to me, but yeah, it's a good time of fellowship, preaching the word, and being together.
So you said before it's a pretty friendly environment. Is that true?
Compared to a lot of environments, well, good example be the Kentucky Derby. If you like to preach to a crowd and they get a lot of hecklers, get some practice with hecklers, man, go to Bobby McCreary's Kentucky Derby event. There you go. There's the pitch for him, right? But if you want an event, it's more your country folk, Trump toting, gun toting, Bible thumping crowd. I think I'm a Christian or whatever. Come out to Circleville. That's your crowd. Get families, kids. Yeah, it's a much more conservative crowd.
That's cool. And they leave you alone, right? The city has supported y'all being there.
Yeah, in fact, this past year, we had a guy decided to try something set up right in the very middle of the festival. So I knew I was kind of taking a risk for it, but I wanted to see what would happen. And it was really encouraging. A lady came up. I don't think I shared this before, but a lady came up that I was one of the directors, something like that. She's like, "Well, you can't be here, but I really do hope that you come back again next year, and you are more than welcome to set up." She said specifically, she said, "I really hope that you set up on the outside of this event." So she's definitely making it clear that she wanted our presence, just not in that particular spot.
Well, that's true. That's cool. That's awesome. Well, good. Well, I've got the link here. I'm going to post it. If somebody wants to contact you about it, what's the best way? Your phone or email? What's best for you?
I would say probably phone. You're welcome to put the phone number up there. It's probably the quickest way.
Okay, cool.
So.
All right, cool. All right, man. That's great. Well, good job. Anything else to share?
Also, another event coming up, of course, is Red, White, and Boom in July 3rd. Wow. It is a single day event, and so, but it's 400,000 people, so maybe you can't commit to Circleville, do the whole thing. But if you want to get that big a crowd, you can come down for one day, and you don't have to miss your July 4th family gathering. You can come the day before. I know Adam Cutshaw is committed to come. It's going to be a good time preaching there. There's people everywhere. Stephen Kendall, I can tell you last year, and just it's a little different crowd. It's kind of a mix of conservative and very liberal, and Columbus is kind of like that melting pot. You get that kind of environment, but a lot of young people, a lot of broken people. So definitely a great opportunity to preach the gospel.
400,000. What time does it start?
So, Lord willing, this year teaching time will be up, I believe. Want to say, is it 8 o'clock? I think on the website. Teaching time and prayer. We'll be out, Lord willing, down in downtown Columbus by around 10, 11. We'll be out there till 10, 11 at night. So it's a long day of preaching. But there's food trucks around if you need a break, get a bite. But if you enjoy a long day of preaching, about 12 hours or so, plus a fireworks show at the end, it's a good opportunity.
Well, cool. Where's everybody stay? Or is there a place to stay, or do they just come and go for the day?
It's come and go the day type of thing. Lodging will be on your own, so definitely recommend getting a place early. Come on down and get some good preaching spots there. So,
awesome.
Yeah, Red, White, and Boom, July 3rd. So
that's pretty cool. In Columbus, what part of the city is it in? Is it in the middle of the city?
Yes, sir. Downtown Columbus.
That's awesome, man. Okay, cool. Good job. And then you've also got April 8th. If somebody still wants to camp and coming out with you, they can come watch the eclipse, right?
That's right. Hey, I can find a way. If you're an evangelist, I might even give you a little discount too. So,
so it's Pith. Spell the second one. I know Airbnb. How would they find you on Airbnb?
How would they? What was that on the Airbnb?
How do they find you on Airbnb, and what's the website for the other Pithcom? Whatever you said.
Oh, Hip Camp. It's HIPCAMP. So
Hip Camp.
Doc, if and when Doc watches this, he can tell you all about Hip, right? So Hip and Hop. So Hip Camp and Airbnb. To find it, you just do a search for Bell Center, Ohio, like campgrounds in those search engines, and it should show up there.
So search. All right, hang on a second. Bell Center Campgrounds.
Yeah.
And the date would be April 8th, right? Would be
April
is the
8th,
main.
yeah. And Bell Center is conveniently located. It's about an hour from Columbus, an hour from Lima. Toledo, it's close to some big cities, and we're right by Indian Lakes. You got a nice beach there and everything. So lots of good opportunities for evangelism, family get-togethers, that kind of thing. So good opportunities.
Cool. All right, Joshua, what a treat. Thanks so much. Thanks for sharing with us. Anything else you want to share?
I think that's all, Bill. Thanks for having me. Appreciate your time.
Okay.
And Lord willing, hope to see some people.
Okay, sounds good. Have a good day. Thanks, Joshua.
All right, you too, Bill. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Great story, great wisdom there. So contact Joshua or join him at the events, or if you just have any questions. Everybody has a we all have a general pathway, you might say, in this work and in our faith in general, but everybody has a little bit different twist. And so Joshua certainly has a different twist in his journey here. So I'd contact him and talk to him. I think that's one thing that certainly helped me out the most, trying to talk to people about what was going on. Certainly in my life, especially around the ministry stuff, since there wasn't really anybody out there 30 years ago, and you're just trying to figure out what's actually happening. And so that's very helpful. So I'd encourage you to talk to him. And the other point, really, about the Bible, it seems like an obvious statement to make, but it's actually a very challenging reality that the Word of God is the center of our faith. But you'll find that the traditions of man and theologies come in, and they sort of alter the way, the directness of the Word. And this is we've seen this in this is kind of what Heath Pusel's "Keep Your Finger in the Text" is about. Is trying to get to the Word and see the purity of it, the clarity of what God is saying in His Word. And to show you this is always a challenge, there's other ministries, Simeon Trust, that teach how to expository preach the Word without bias. That's where this whole "Keep Your Finger in the Text" started. And I sat there one day, I was going to Simeon Trust event hosted by one of our Super Bowl outreach team leaders in Atlanta. And I sat there, and he asked people to say what was in the text. And they actually misquoted it, and they read it, and they still misquoted what was in it. And so this is a challenge for us to come and live a Christian life when our life is basically centered on the Word. Now, you have to apply some traditions to get organized and so forth, but you can't let the tradition trump the Word. And so the Word, the centrality of the Word, which is what Josh was describing, my point there, is very fundamental to this work, very fundamental to our Christian life, and coming to that, staying focused on that. And again, as he mentioned, prayer, hearing God speak to you, is also comes about through prayer and your focus on the Word. So great wisdom there from Joshua Richards. Hope you can join him, well, at the Eclipse on the 8th, or Red, White, and Boom in Columbus, or in Circleville, Ohio this October. So give him a call. Thanks again, Joshua. We'll talk to you soon. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.